God bless you and welcome to another taping and celebration ministry of the Brinson Institute. I'm your host, Apostle Dr. Sylvester Paul Brinson III, the Dean of Hope Institute, and we're just excited about what God is doing in our lives and in our world. We're picking up from part one. I'm sure some of you all had tuned in on last week or the other week or other show, and you met my good friends and brothers, the Reverend Dr. Al Sampson, who was the only one that was ordained by Dr. Martin Luther King in his organization, SCLC, way back. And then Reverend Dr. Julius J. Smith, all of them educated, went to Morehouse, went to seminary, been in the struggle, and they're here today. And I'd like to welcome them to our show. Welcome the Reverend Dr. Al Sampson and also the Reverend Dr. Julius J. Smith to the Brinson Institute.
God bless, and thank you for this opportunity, Dr. Brinson.
God bless you, Apostle Brinson. I'm so glad that I'm to be here, and thank you for having me.
One of the reasons why I'm excited about being here is because I need you all to help me today. I need you all to help me today as we look at 2017 and we listen to our brothers and sisters in the community, in the street. They're dogging out the preacher. They're dogging out the black church. They're looking at when you look around, folks don't want to go to education. Everybody want to be a reverend. Everybody want to be a bishop. People want to be apostle. Folks say they call. And look at the plight of our communities, from Black Lives Matter to education to the situation. You all represent 40 to 50 years of history. 50 to 60 years. Apostle Dr. Al Sampson is 78. You in your 60s, I'm 66.
I'm 66.
You 6, so both of us are 66. Al is 78. So we go way back. We paid our dues. We went to high school and we graduated. We went to college and we went to seminary. We went and got our doctorate degrees. We worked in the community. We respected our elders. But look at where we are today. Talk to us today. Make some sense of that. We're just, when they see us walking down the street, sitting in the restaurants, we have some history. So what is it that we need to do? What about legacy in our communities, in our church? I just want to share. I have them with me today because I want to bring them in because they represent history. In history, his story, God's story, and they also represent the fathers of the community and where we are today. And so I want them to say something. You that are watching us, that are in Australia, in South America, and Russia, and out there in England, I want you to kind of understand the plight of African Americans in America and some of our history. So this is going to be a learning time for you. So we're going to segue into some of the struggles that you see, you watch on the news, things about Chicago and all. Talk to us today.
Well,
look in that camera if you got to. But we can talk. But anytime you want to make a point, just look in that camera and talk to us.
When I think about Africans, African Americans, brothers and sisters in the Caribbean, in the Pan-African world.
Say something. Define Pan-African for those who don't know what that is.
African people that have spread throughout the earth. So when we say the Pan-African world, we're talking about people of African descent.
Okay.
Through their ancestors, whether they're African Americans, whether they're Afro-Caribbean, whether they're on the African continent, wherever you find black people on the planet of the earth, whether they're Aborigines in Australia, wherever you found black people on the planet Earth, we have all suffered from oppression, from colonization, from abuse, from slavery, from all matter of evil we have experienced at the hands of other ethnic groups in the earth.
Okay.
Now, I don't say that to say, well, let's just live a life of anger and be mad because we're not mad men and women. But what we do need to do to rise above the oppression, to rise and make no mistake about it, we're still oppressed even here in America. When you have a football player like Colin Kaepernick, an outstanding quarterback, gets blackballed because he takes a knee in protest in the land of the free in America, then he's blackballed for protesting. That's just to say, well, black man, I'm using that because, you know, what the enemy would call him would be something different. You have the nerve to protest and we're paying you? We're not paying you to protest, but he has a right to protest in America. So I want to focus, though, on what we need to do, because we've been going around and around and through different stages with all of our black leaders, from Frederick Douglass to Martin Luther King to Jesse Jackson to Al Sampson. We've been in the protest mode, and we've been trying to, and we've made great progress and great strides. However, it's time for us as a people worldwide to begin to invest. And I want us to not replace protests, but I want us to make our major focus on investing in our families, investing in our communities, and investing in black institutions worldwide. Because when you build an institution, then you begin to become self-sufficient. Then you can build a nation. Then you can stand on solid ground. But you can't do that if you haven't built any institutions, if you can't feed yourself, if you can't protect yourself, if you can't employ yourself. You know, you're at the mercy of whoever does those things. They can be withdrawn at any time. If you rely on someone else to protect your household, and they decide, well, I'm not going to protect your household today, and they walk away, well, then you're vulnerable.
So you're saying to me, am I hear you saying that in order for us to progress, or any people or group to progress, there has to be an institutional situation to bring together the various modalities and dynamics of life and culture and history? That
Absolutely.
Because we don't look at institutionalizing what we think, what we see, what we feel.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well,
God directed Moses to go talk to Pharaoh. Pharaoh had an institution. He was an institution. But Moses, at the direction of God, went to Pharaoh and said, let my people go. Okay? They were a people, not necessarily an institution, but through the power of God, the first thing that God taught them when they got out of Egyptian slavery was to build an institution. He said, I want you to make me a tabernacle. The tabernacle was an institution. Okay? And so from then on, and then when we get to the New Testament, Paul begins to build the institution of the church. He went throughout Europe and Asia, and he began to build the institution. He made pastors and bishops and called other apostles. Jesus called apostles, and then Paul started calling and making apostles. Okay? And then they start building the church. The church is an institution. Okay? The church has a spiritual agenda, but also it took care of the people. They had an economic agenda. He said that when on Pentecost, after Pentecost, he said that they continued in going to the temple and in prayer and going from house to house and breaking bread.
So you're saying to me then, the Acts
took care of all those that had need.
So therefore, for those that are watching, those who are church related,
yes,
you're saying that the Acts 2:4 experience, and they continue in the apostles' doctrine, in prayers, and breaking bread, and fellowship from house to house, and God added to the church as such as being saved, that was an institution that institutionalized the concept of Christianity as a religion, the church.
The church.
Okay, now, so now you're saying to me that the church as we know it, to be effective and efficient, has to maintain itself within the constructs of an institution. Now, that's what I hear you say. So I need a Dr. Al Sampson. You represent 78 years. We represent 60 years. Now we're sitting here representing the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, 2000, and now we're in 2017. So that's 65, 67 years, 40, 50, 60 years. And when we look at ourselves right now as an African-American people, people are saying, bump the institutional church. We're not being bothered no institutional church. So folks, forget all that. We ain't know this the church. I got church hurt. I've been wondering about church. Nobody wants to be bothered with church. But yet, Dr. Smith, you're saying, no, see, you've got to get back to an institutional concept of church and community. And then I'm asking Dr. Al Sampson, because he brings to the table the expansion of community. From my perspective, the church is in three components: the ministry, traditional institution; the marketplace economics, and the marketplace of the economy; and municipality, those who form laws, make good laws, and enforce laws. So if the church is involved in all those three categories, it keeps itself going through the institutional process. It then is in the marketplace of life, and then it's in the municipality of life who make laws. So if we're active, all of that is still have some form of structure. So then what do we say to our millennials? What do we say to our people in church today who say forget church?
Well,
forget community. Because it was out of the church as a people that we made us. That's what made us.
Well, what I would say historically is every institution that black people have came out of the church.
So the church was the mother.
Black colleges were birthed out of the church, in the basement of churches.
Okay,
first.
white colleges were too, don't forget that now.
And
all educational systems came out of a church.
Absolutely. And the banks came out of the church. Illinois Service Federal, the last bank, African-American owned bank of financial institution in Chicago, was strengthened and developed by churches when the people from the bank sat in the lobby of the church and start opening accounts for people. They signed up for an account at the lobby of the church.
So the question that I have is, that was 20, 30 years ago. 20, 30 years later, Dr. Martin Luther King, Dr. Al Sampson, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and some of those persons worked out of the church-based concept that God in the church, I have a dream. All that came out of church, the black church, the church historical. Now we've moved 30, 40 years from that. And now we got a pharaoh who don't know. And we're in 2017. And folks say, forget church. I don't want to be bothered with church. I've been hurt by the church. I don't hear nothing about church. And we have black African-American scholars and folk on radio and television talking about the church and the hip-hop culture. And nobody wants to be about the church. Talk to us. Where are we?
One of the interesting things that makes both of what you're saying, both of you saying, is this: there's a song they sing in the church, "Take Me to the King." But there's a phrase there that says, "I'm all churched out."
Yeah.
And Kirk Franklin and Tamala Mann wrote the song. And the interesting thing is, I'm appreciative of our history and our legacy, because we always understood that you ought to take the church out the church into the community. Theory is that if your God is as awesome as you say he is on Sunday, then there ought to be some transformation with the power on Sunday, Monday through Saturday, back to Sunday. The church cannot afford to be dry bones in the valley. without getting to the 12th chapter of Corinthians, where they talk about put together the body of Christ.
All right.
So when I move around the country and around the world with my economic understanding of the church and its power base because of powerful people inside the church, I don't open up the church every Sunday morning with will the visitors please stand? I open up the church when I speak. I come back around and ask, is there anybody in here who's a plumber? Anybody in here who's a farmer? Is there anybody in here who knows how to sew, who makes clothes? Because food, clothing, shelter, and water are the 4 key economic levers that our churches need to have an economic agenda of liberation, living in a world that has been so capitalistic that it has capital with the I. When community and church have a U. And so there's a little story I say. I had a little party this afternoon for 3, just a little party between I, myself, and me. Myself ate all the sandwiches and drank the key and drank the tea and passed the cake to me. But it was just a little party with I, myself, and me. And what we've learned is you can't be on an island. My I is on land, I land. When the genius of the language which dictates behavior is when you discuss community, you have to discuss the you and the I. When you discuss church, you don't have to worry about the I, but you do have to worry and be responsible for the word you. Even the word hustle means helping us systematically to live economically.
All right, that's hustle.
That's hustle.
Say that again. Listen, look at the camera and give a definition of the acronym
Yeah.
hustle.
Hustle.
Take hustle, break it down.
Yeah, helping us to live economically together. Economically, educationally.
So what I'm hearing in what you say, Dr. Sampson, and what you're saying, Dr. Julius, that regardless, I just threw this out to be adversarial. Based upon my statement, that doesn't mean nothing because there's always been 2 or 3 streams of the institution church. The black church as an institution, regardless of what people say, has always had 3 or 4 different components working at the same time. So it's always had its economic base. It's always had its educational base. It always had its political empowerment base. It just determined what church you was a part of. What membership did you have? What denomination, what group, or what particular division that you happen to be in the church, based upon that has painted your picture to define what it means when you say I'm churched out.
But
Because
now,
your church may have churched you out,
Sure.
but there's always been, on this rock I build my church, and the black church, there's always been this strand, is what I hear Dr. Julius saying, there's always been a strand of people in the black church, in the African American church, that understand the systems, the power, the issues, and they're always at the point of doing something and affecting change,
but the
regardless of what's going on.
But Martin said, where do we go from here, chaos or community? And the genius now in 2017 is that we have to take the Great Commission. Go ye into all the world. Huh?
Yeah.
Remember?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
are.
I'm
Finish it for me. Go ye
and preach the gospel to every creature, every culture,
teaching and observing.
observing those things that I have
Whatsoever
commanded you.
And
See,
what
we're
have I
not teaching.
and what have I
We
commanded?
to heal the sick, raise the dead, cast out the devils, give prescriptions,
Feed the
change
hungry,
stuff,
liberate
feed the
the
hungry,
captives.
liberate the captive,
But in order
open
to
up the eyes of the blind,
great, but in order
visit those in prison that are sick in the hospital.
Right. But in order to get there, you got to get back to Isaiah 61,
Arise and shine.
which says, "The Spirit of the Lord
It's
is
upon
upon
me.
me, He has
anointed me
anointed
to
him.
preach the gospel.
But inside of that, you have anointment, appointment, and arrangements.
Okay. Say that again.
Inside of
Inside
Isaiah
of-
61,
okay,
I
all
call
right.
it the job description from the pulpit to the pew.
All right, come on.
You have anointment, appointment, and then arrangements.
That's right.
Because God wouldn't anoint, appoint if he didn't have you in the position of making arrangements. So when Julius says Moses moves on Pharaoh, Joshua says a real simple thing. The land is your land. Moses, thy servant, is dead. The land is your land. Do not move to the right nor to the left. Be strong and stay
And of a good courage.
for I have made you
I've given you the land.
the land. Okay.
I've given you the land.
Yes, and don't forget, years ago, don't you remember the guy that was selling the jewelry and stuff, where Jephthah, where he talked about Jephthah, that all this is yours. What we have to see is the church has no boundaries, so we can't be quote unquote a ghetto church on a ghetto street, when God has moved us into the Great Commission.
Okay. So if there is,
And we have permission for the commission.
so therefore, if there is a church in the ghetto, the anointment, appointment, arrangement rearranges the land to bring forth and bud.
So churches learn their identity with doing genealogy. And there's a man named Dr. Rick Kittles who I brought to our church, and Sister Gina Page. And now I found out that even though I'm an adopted child, I found out that on my mama's side, when I did my DNA, on my mama's side, I'm from Sierra Leone. And so I went to the village, Lone Star, in Africa. On my daddy's side, because I never knew who my father was, I'm Igbo from Nigeria. So I have a level of connectivity. I work with black farmers all over the country. Started the Department of Agriculture in my church. But I also, if you go on my website, you will see that there's a sister out of Atlanta who gets my seeds because I have the first heirloom seed bank at Lincoln University, Jefferson City, Missouri, where if a farmer's paying $100 a bag for seeds, we give it to him $50 a bag. Why is that important? Because she took the seeds from my seed bank at Lincoln University and went to Senegal. And so we have the village in Senegal. Now, everybody might not ever get there, but the seeds that come out of a black school, an HBCU school, and the brother there works for the United States Department of Agriculture. I got another brother whose daddy, granddaddy, great-granddaddy come out of South Carolina. He got a PhD in agronomy. I just wrote him a letter of invitation for him now to go to Central State. And he's going to be in charge of the agriculture department at Central State. Well, why is that important? Because all of the black universities have an international component to their mandate of taking care of children, not based on the, Martin said, not based on the color of their skin, but based on the content of their character. So we have to see ourselves as Michael Jackson was correct. We are the world. You know the
So
word.
the story has to be told and continue to be retold to those persons who, because of their experience, define church or churched out from their point of view.
God, make me as big as you so I won't feel as small as me.
All right, so that's where it is. So those people who feel as small as me, the media picks them up.
That's right.
And they become the voice.
That's right.
And so what we hear and see out there,
Yes.
you out there listen to me. The voice has been jacked up. It's been hijacked.
Yes, yes,
And so those who have no history,
yes.
who has no commitment, the media picks them out. They make them our leaders, and they say, this is the nation.
But
this is the
remember-
status of the church.
But remember, they got a rap, but no map.
Okay, rap, but no map.
And
So,
and
so Dr. Smith, you talked about we need to do something now. So what is the message to the church community, an African American church, today in 2017? As we look at Chicago, as we look in the South, as we look across the Pan community, the church is the body of Christ, fitly joined together from different parts. And so the apostolic community of the apostle, the prophet, evangelist, the pastor, the teacher, according to Ephesians 4, is to equip the church to do the work of the ministry, that it can grow to become committed to the unity of the faith, that it don't move back and forth with every wind of doctrine and slight things of people who come to deceive it.
So watch this. I was at Al Sharpton's call last month to go to Washington with 1,000 preachers. Well, I didn't march because I've been marching. That's for folk who ain't never marched.
Who ain't marched before?
Uh,
Train them how to march.
but while I was there, I passed out my cards and told them what I was doing. So a bishop, apostle, called me just the other day and said, I saw you in Washington. I've got millennial preachers that I would like you to come January, February and talk to them. And I say, well, I'd like to do 3 things. One, I want to give you a Bible so that they can have context, because I'm one of the biblical scholars for the original African Heritage Bible. I'd like to do some workshops on the world that I came out of to see if the church that I started out of, if they can get any fruit of liberation
Come on.
from, because fruit cocktail is different kinds of fruit.
There's all kinds.
That tossed salad is different kinds
Of salad.
of salad, but you got color on the plate,
That's it.
and that's why I like what you were saying, Dr. Smith, about your journey, and that's why I like what you're doing, Apostle, because we're now coming with a message, and we're coming with a method, because our genius is we were all Methodists. Listen to the word, because we had a method for our eye.
Okay.
We're not Baptist Buicks, Presbyterian Pontiacs, Catholic Cadillacs. Those are automobiles that we ride in. But when we get out, we're spiritual beings of liberation.
And so therefore, because of that, I wanted to take some time out on the Brinson Institute to introduce you to some of our spiritual leaders, those who have pastored, some are retired, but refied and doing other things, to help you understand that this is serious. And you have no right to say the church ain't, the church this and such that. And if you're not in it, if you feel like it needs to change, then get in it and challenge it. But there is a rich history of where we are, where we come from, and because you have probably been hurt in your place of your small community does not mean you have the right to indict the whole institution
Stay there.
known as the Black church.
Yes.
So with that, I just wanted you, those that are listening to me, you that are in America, find you a church. Go to it. Ask God to send you to a church, to a community of faith, and get in it. And if something's wrong with it, then ask God to use you to help it. Remember now, the church is the body of Christ. You are part of the body. Then don't forget to assemble yourselves together. Find a community of faith. And until then, go with God, and may He bless you.